I make these videos for two reasons, really. The first one is it scratches an itch of the kind of creative side of my personality. It lets me have a think about the structure and the content and discussion points, and I love sharing that. I don't really do it for views and for the likes, but I love the commentary that I get back from the viewers that want to get in touch with me through the comments. So you're welcome to do that in today's discussion. And unlike other videos that normally have a spectacular background, this one is exceptionally bare, and there is a reason for that. And that reason is this is my bedroom at home. And the second reason that I make them is it's like therapy. It's my opportunity to kind of share this out, document it, and lets me revisit it at a later time. And so the reason I decided to make this video here is so that I can use this little bit of space to bring a couple of images in. But I wanted to talk about this bedroom and what it's meant to me, particularly on the journey of music. Music has been such a massive, important part of my life, and I'm sure connected to the ADHD and also being a young man growing up with a single parent at home and my father. I shared this room for a short period of time with my older brother, and my older brother and sister were probably the first influence of music on me. Having a cassette deck at home that you could play, record, talk into, hear your own voice and play tapes. And the very first memories I have of music was my brother being into Pink Floyd, particularly The Wall. And that is something that stuck with me till now. In fact, only recently, I just went to see Dave Gilmour at the Royal Albert Hall, who had just recently turned 78, same age as my father when he passed away. And so all of those years, that was my brother's influence. My brother was also deeply into bands like Madness. And my sister gave me the more relaxed side of music. She was a big fan of Madonna with albums like True Blue, but also bands like Wet, Wet, Wet and Deacon Blue. So again, those artists have always stuck with me. But my very first love, my first real deep passion was for a band called Big Country. And Big Country was fronted by a guy called Stuart Adamson, who's unfortunately no longer with us. But Big Country being this kind of Scottish working class band, I'm sure growing up in a household with a single father who was working class, holding down a job, that as I got into music, there was definitely a correlation between the bands that I was listening to, who they were fronted by, mainly what seemed like kind of working class men, and the relationship then with my dad. So I'm sure there's something deeply rooted in all of that stuck with me through the years. But Big Country came onto my radar for one thing, and that was a movie called Restless Natives. Now, if you're Scottish and you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, you might know that film. It hasn't aged too well, but the soundtrack from Big Country was just blew my mind as a young kid. And so the very first single I ever bought in the local town centre at our price was Big Country, and it was a single called The Teacher. On the B-side was some of the soundtrack to Restless Natives. And I can remember going to the local cinema with my dad on a Saturday afternoon to see Restless Natives. And I think I was probably 9 or 10. It was just like, wow, just hearing this band and hearing the kind of Scottish elements that came out of it just really resonated with me. And so through the years, as I grew older, I started to really get into different kinds of music, and I would get pocket money on a Saturday and I would go to the local town centre and I'd go to Fortune or Our Price and I'd pick an album. And for a period of time, my music taste was going all over the place. And as music television started to come around, I started to drift into the American influence. And this is where it gets a little bit cringe for me, but I'll tell you anyway. Moving on from the likes of Big Country, my next big influence was MC Hammer. You can't touch this. Yeah, with the pajama pants, that guy, right? So I was really into MC Hammer, and he had a track on a movie by the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I bought the soundtrack and I just got right into it, and MC Hammer was on there, and so was Vanilla Ice. But I was always willing to explore, and so from that I found myself in the local music shop ready to buy my next record. And at that point I just was in the rap section flicking through the records, and I found this album cover that just kind of blew my mind a little bit. And it was by a band called Public Enemy, and the album was called Fear of the Black Planet. Looks like this. And I bought that album, and it just took me off into a whole new world of this deep-rooted political rap music from the band, from Chuck D and Flavor Flav. But they had a follow-up album after Fear of the Black Planet called Apocalypse 91, released in 1991. And on that album was a collaboration track with a heavy metal band called Anthrax. And the track was called Bring the Noise. And when I saw this and heard it on MTV, it was the kind of harsh music that I felt I needed at the time. Probably a bit of a rebellious nature from my dad's divorce from my mum, being raised with my dad here, and just feeling this kind of like angst, the kind of adrenaline style angst. But very quickly off the back of that, I discovered Metallica. And that would be in 1991 as they released the Black Album with Enter Sandman and Sad But True, Wherever I May Roam and Nothing Else Matters. So that was 91. Now, at this time, right, the reason I tell you this story was that I had begged my dad to go see MC Hammer at Glasgow SECC, right? Now I said to him, can we please go? Can we please go? I would have been 14. And my dad was just like, no, we're no going. I'm no taking you to that, right? He just was not having it. And I'm like, come on, please let me do it. And he said no. And so I kind of moved on a little bit and I let it go. But see, within months of that happening, I turned 15 and I had really fallen in love with Metallica. And suddenly I saw these posters around Glasgow, and I saw in the newspaper that they were going to come to the SECC on the 15th of October, I'll check that date, 1992. And so I asked my dad, can I go to that? And he said, okay, if you're going with a schoolmate, okay. So me and a guy from school called Gary Hamilton, we decided we would go to this gig. And so the Saturday morning that the tickets were going on sale, my dad took me on a bus into the city centre, and we stood outside Virgin Records with a short queue, maybe 80 people waiting for the tickets to go on sale for Metallica. And I got that ticket and I was allowed to go to that concert with my schoolmate. And so when I went to that show, it just really was electric. It was everything that I needed it to be. I had no idea what this concert would be like, but I was watching MTV and I had no idea how to conduct myself. But as I mentioned in a past video, I was allowed to go under the premise of just be good. And so I went, and within months of that, my dad had started to kind of loosen up now. I'm the youngest of the family members. My brother and sister are older, more life experience. I was the baby of the family, and I'm sure my dad at this point had learned enough lessons of bringing up the two olders to recognise when to kind of let the reins go a little bit. And so that trust factor kicked in, right? And I was allowed to go. But I can tell you that I then discovered Metallica was coming back to play at Milton Keynes Bowl along with Alice in Chains and Megadeth. And I begged and begged, could I go to this? And again, my dad said, okay. Now, I don't know in what world we're in now where you might let two 15-year-olds get on a bus in Glasgow and go to Milton Keynes to go to a heavy metal festival with 80,000 people. But he let me do it. And the reason I wanted to tell you this story today is that if you've got kids and they're maybe at that age where they're starting to do things and you're wondering, can you let them go? I know we're in a different era, but I cannot tell you how influential it was in my life of being allowed to do those things at an early age and the trust factor. I didn't go to these things in bevy, go drinking. I went there and I was as good as gold. I went to the shows, I bought a bit of merch and I came home, and I always made sure that I stayed on the right side of the law. I always made sure I was good, which meant that I could go to another and another. And so, as I sit here now in this bedroom, I reflect on the posters that went up on these walls: Metallica, Big Country, Pink Floyd, the Stone Roses, Oasis, over the years as my music changed. And I sit here now just before I depart from this property for probably the last time, and I look round these walls and I remember the memories that went on here. And I would say, if you've got kids, you've got to give them a little bit of space, because in the years now when I've travelled all over the world for work and I've gone solo, my dad's voice rings out in my head with a be good, look after yourself, do the right thing, stay in touch. And I think, yeah, there was some serious life lessons in all of this. So that's my little tale for today. I promise we'll get back to some different content next week when I get home again. But I just wanted to tell you this last tale from this little room in here, share that with you. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments if you've got experiences similar to this. I love to hear from you all. Thank you so much for watching.